A mayfly lives for one day. In that single day, it hatches, finds a mate, reproduces, and dies. It fits an entire life into 24 hours. A bottlenose dolphin reaches sexual maturity at around 5 to 13 years old. That already sounds like a lot. A chimpanzee, our closest living relative, is fully grown and ready to survive on its own by age 8 or 9. An elephant, one of the largest and most complex animals on Earth, is considered an adult at around 14. A human, somewhere between 18 and 25. And honestly, anyone who's met a 22-year-old knows that's being generous. The human childhood is absurdly, almost embarrassingly long. No other species on Earth keeps its young dependent for anywhere near as long. A creature that can build a rocket ship apparently needs 18 years before it can legally rent a car. Which, when you think about it, is kind of hilarious. But here's what's strange. It's not an accident. The length of human childhood isn't a flaw in the design. It might be the most important feature we have. So why does it take humans so long to grow up? And why did evolution think that was a good idea? No, not because we are alien. The answer starts, like most weird human things, with the brain. Human brains are enormous, not just big. Enormously, almost embarrassingly oversized for our body size. An adult human brain consumes about 20% of the body's total energy. In newborns, that number is closer to 60%. Your brain is basically a gas-guzzling sports car running on a toddler's stomach. And the thing about big, complicated brains is that they take a long time to build. A mouse brain is basically complete at birth. A lamb, a foal, a baby gazelle, these animals arrive with brains that are largely finished, wired up, ready to go. They have to be, because nature immediately tries to eat them. The gazelle that stops to figure out how legs work gets eaten by a lion on day 1. Humans took a completely different approach. Human babies are born with brains that are roughly 25% of their adult size. That is not a typo. A quarter. The rest of the construction happens after the baby arrives. And it doesn't finish quickly. The human brain keeps developing, wiring, pruning, and reorganizing itself all the way into a person's mid-20s. The part of the brain that handles decision-making, impulse control, long-term planning, and risk assessment, the prefrontal cortex, is literally the last thing to finish. It's not fully developed until you're around 25 years old, which explains an enormous amount about teenagers. But why? Why would evolution build a brain that takes 25 years to complete? Why not just ship a finished product? Because a finished product can't be customized. Here's the key insight. A brain that's mostly built before birth is a brain that's mostly locked in. It runs on instinct. It's fast, it's efficient, and it works great as long as the environment stays the same. A salmon doesn't need to improvise. A spider doesn't need to pick up new hobbies. The environment they were designed for and the environment they actually live in are basically the same thing. Humans don't have that luxury, or rather, humans decided they didn't want it. The human brain, left unfinished at birth, is waiting. It's waiting for information, for language, for culture, for social rules, for tools, for skills. It's not a bug that the brain isn't done. It's a hard drive with a massive amount of storage, sitting open, ready to be filled with whatever environment it lands in. A child born into a fishing village learns to read tides and nets and weather by watching adults do it for years. A child born in a modern city learns traffic lights, reading, and how to use a smartphone before they're 5. The same biological brain, completely different software. No other animal does this to the same degree. This is what makes the long human childhood not just tolerable, but necessary. The brain needs time because learning takes time. Real, deep, structural learning, the kind that actually rewires neural pathways, doesn't happen in a few months. It happens over years. And the main mechanism for all of that learning? Play. Human children play more than almost any other species, and they do it for longer. This sounds trivial. It is not. Play is not wasted time. Play is the brain running simulations. When a group of 6-year-olds plays house, they are practicing social negotiation, role assignment, and emotional regulation. When kids build forts, they're running structural engineering experiments. When they fight over toys and then make up, they're learning conflict resolution. When they invent imaginary worlds with their own rules, they're essentially practicing legal systems. Children are not goofing around. They are doing the most cognitively intensive thing a human brain ever does. They're building themselves. And here's the thing. The longer the childhood, the more simulations the brain can run. The more socially and cognitively complex selects the species, the longer the childhood tends to be. You can almost use childhood length as a rough proxy for cognitive complexity. Mice, a few weeks. Dogs, a year or two. Chimpanzees, nearly a decade. Humans, almost 2 decades, and then a few bonus years while the prefrontal cortex catches up. But there's a cost to all of this, and it's enormous. A child who isn't independent is a child who needs to be fed, protected, taught, and kept alive by someone else for years, for many years. That is a massive investment. In the wild, it's a potentially fatal one. A dependency that long means the parent can't simply move on. It means the group has to absorb the cost. It means resources get poured into a creature that won't produce anything useful for a very long time. From a pure calorie-counting evolutionary standpoint, human children are an absurdly expensive luxury item. So why did evolution allow this? Because the return on investment is extraordinary. A human adult who spent 15 to 20 years learning, practicing, failing, adapting, and accumulating knowledge is capable of things no other animal comes close to. They can solve problems that have never existed before. They can invent tools that didn't exist yesterday. They can cooperate with complete strangers using abstract systems like money, laws, and language. They can pass accumulated knowledge across generations, which means each generation doesn't start from scratch. It starts from where the last one left off. This is called cumulative culture, and it is the single most powerful thing that evolution has ever accidentally invented. Every piece of technology, every scientific discovery, every civilization, every idea, it exists because humans don't just learn. They save their learning, pass it on, and build on top of it. And cumulative culture requires a very long childhood to download. You can't hand a 5-year-old calculus. You can't explain democracy to a 3-year-old. Complex knowledge has to be built layer by layer, year by year, inside a brain that is simultaneously still under construction. The long childhood isn't just enabling learning. It's the only way to load enough cultural complexity into a single human before they're expected to function on their own. Then there's adolescence, a phase so distinct and strange that some researchers treat it as its own developmental category. Not quite child, not quite adult, something in between that almost no other species experiences in the same way. Human adolescence is a second burst of brain reorganization. The brain goes through a partial remodel during the teenage years, pruning old neural connections and strengthening new ones. Emotions run high because the emotional systems mature faster than the rational ones. Risk-taking spikes because novelty-seeking increases before impulse control catches up. Teenagers are not broken. They are in the middle of a major renovation, and renovations are loud and messy. That renovation serves a purpose. Adolescence is when humans start to individuate, when they separate from their family unit, test social limits, explore identity, and begin building the independent self that will eventually have to operate in a much broader world. It's turbulent because it's supposed to be. You can't reshape a brain quietly. So the full picture looks like this. Human babies are born with unfinished brains because our skulls got too big. That unfinished brain spends years absorbing language, culture, and social behavior through play and observation. It then goes through a second remodel in adolescence, pruning and reinforcing in preparation for independence. And it doesn't technically finish until the mid-20s. Total construction time, roughly a quarter of a human life. Which sounds like too much. It sounds slow and inefficient and almost reckless, sending a half-built creature into the world for decades before it's actually done. But consider what comes out the other end. A species so adaptable it can survive on every continent. A species that invented agriculture, philosophy, music, medicine, nuclear physics, and the internet. A species where each individual is a unique product of their specific time, place, culture, and experience in a way that no instinct-driven animal ever could be. The longest childhood in the animal kingdom didn't slow humans down. It created us, helpless for years, dependent for decades. And then, eventually, the most complex, creative, and relentlessly inventive thing that evolution has ever accidentally built. All because we gave our brains the time to finish.